there has been extended, systematic attacks on our police and law enforcement professionals for years, calling them racist and bigoted and prejudiced, demanding that they be defunded and replaced with social workers. When you condemn the police, when you make it harder to do their job, you shouldn't be surprised that criminals take advantage of the opportunities that follow, and that crime rises, and that in particular, violent crime rises. Likewise, some on the left like to complain about mass incarceration.
This guy, man, this guy, wow. First off, he got part of defund the police, right? Finally, someone said, and replace them with social workers. Social workers are going to cause so much crime, storming homes and not murdering women sitting in their bed who, Piper.
Yeah, it should come as no surprise that this is such an off-base answer, but I'm listening to this and, realizing that, of course, Tom Cotton is leaving a huge part out of the picture. Just a few days, I think it was 5 days before this mass shooting, the NRA successfully shot down a ban on assault weapons in Boulder, celebrated this, and then while details about the mass shooting were coming out, the NRA was tweeting the text of the Second Amendment. So there's this sense that obviously the right has coalesced around that what's going to solve everything is arming police officers, when we know the brutality, the racism that informs the way that police officers then use those weapons and cause people to feel unsafe in their own communities. This is a totally unsatisfactory answer from Tom Cotton that really misses the point that obviously the failure of, well, I guess more importantly, even the power of the NRA, the power of the gun lobby, and the failure to recognize and acknowledge the fact that these kinds of weapons have no place in our community. That's really what I think is more important to focus on when talking about the story of what's unfolded here.
There's this debate that often comes up on conservative media, or even actually CNN as well, where I used to find myself debating, the good guy with the gun situation, right? And the FBI itself has released statistics saying, it is more viable for you to throw an object like a chair or whatever that's, in front of glasses at a shooter than it is for you to pull out a gun, because even law enforcement scored incredibly low in times of stress hitting a target, because there's a million things going. Your brain is stressed out. You might. So they advise against it, even with law enforcement, which is incredible to me. The fact that these talking points can exist in the law enforcement community and then get lost because the NRA, who is now going bankrupt, thank goodness, has this power. I mean, what they do is they go and they lobby Tom Cotton. They lobby Ted Cruz. Simon, before we get to you, can I just play the Ted Cruz clip, because it's similar. So let's play Ted Cruz at this hearing.
And every time there's a shooting, we play this ridiculous theater where this committee gets together and proposes a bunch of laws that would do nothing to stop these murders. Senator from Connecticut just said the folks on the other side of the aisle have no solutions. Well, the senator from Connecticut knows that is false. And he knows that's false because Senator Grassley and I together introduced legislation, Grassley-Cruz, targeted at violent criminals, targeted at felons, targeted at fugitives, targeted at those with serious mental disease, to stop them from getting firearms, to put them in prison when they try to illegally buy guns. What happens in this committee after every mass shooting is Democrats propose taking away guns from law-abiding citizens, because that's their political objective. But what they propose, not only does it not reduce crime, it makes it worse.
I mean, Simon, this is like some level of spin. I mean, we've seen a lot of spin come from them before, and none of these guys who stormed these in the last week, at least, the massage parlor slaughter, or the one at the grocery store, they bought their guns legally and they did not have a criminal record. So which criminals are they talking about?
Right, exactly. And it's so typical to see these conservatives, clutch their pearls when it comes to like conversations around gun control, and yet they'll also so quickly defend these terribly violent institutions like police and prisons, as Tom Cotton did, like in the same breath, right? And I'm so glad that Piper talked about the violence that police do when they have access to these guns. And I guess along those lines, it's worth noting that not all leftists are in favor of gun control legislation that so frequently ignores the main purveyors of gun violence, which are the military and the police, particularly the United States military and police. There's a conversation to be had about, like, why are politicians so quick to get to put control around citizens buying guns, where they're not going to do anything at all when there's like a shooting from police. They won't do anything to get guns out of the hands of police officers, or to defund or demilitarize police departments.
They want to get guns out of the hands of people of color. Let's be very clear. There have been Michael Bloomberg, this big advocate for gun reform, had a buyback program in New York, specifically in communities of color. They're fine with some people having the guns, white people, white guys, police, people who whether it's in the prison system, they have no problem with that. They have a lot of problem with people legally buying guns. And even when they do legally get pulled over and get killed, as we know with Fernando Castillo or so many others who've experienced this. That's the hearing I want to see. The hearing, you want to talk about gun legislation in a reasonable way, and we want to talk about criminals. Great, let's talk about this. Let's have a reasonable conversation about the racism that exists, has been reported on, is being investigated in police forces across this country, and we're arming these people, simultaneously going after unarmed Black men and women and people of color or undocumented people. I mean, the list could go on, who may have legal guns, may not even be armed. Doesn't matter. Your idea of a criminal is not what is actually criminal. I'm so sick of this debate. I'm sorry, guys. It's just like,
It's really frustrating. Yeah. And I'm same as you. I want to have a hearing where we actually talk about all of the violence that occurs in this country, especially along the lines of race and gender and class, and how a lot of that violence, some of it's done with guns, and most of the time, it's done at the hands of the state. And so, we got to really look at the sources of violence and make sure that our legislation and the conversations that we're having around it are addressing that.
Not to mention the data, the NRA 15, 20 years ago lobbied to remove the efforts to collect accurate data. Most of the non-state level gun violence is from suicides, which is a mental health crisis, which of course Medicare for All would be a great solution for, right? There's so many, and after the pandemic, I imagine it's going to be worse, or it has been worse. But they're also not measuring the violence that police have inflicted, how many shootings that police have inflicted on people in this country. Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers.